In giving today's presentation, I have to acknowledge that I'm neither a master planner nor an architect, and as such I don't have a suggested plan for the site. However, I do hope today to articulate in words some pointers that we think will be useful for the site. As such, the view that I'm presenting today is a more holistic view. And there are no slides to this presentation, but hopefully what I give to you here today will be sufficient to maintain your interest. The plan with the presentation is to talk about the site in the context of an A to Z of what I believe is important to take into consideration. And unusually, starting with an alphabet, perhaps the most important letter to start with in this instance is P. P is for profit. In normal circumstances, profit derives what goes on a site. And I think that we have to acknowledge today that because this is a site owned by Kilkenny County Council, that profit is not the most important driver, and that we shouldn't be influenced by what will give the maximum return on the site, but instead by what will give the maximum return to those who enjoy the benefits from the site, i.e. the people of Kilkenny. And therefore, as a result of that, the view is not one that you would expect perhaps from an estate agent. This presentation should be taken in that context. A is for accessible. The site needs to open up to the rest of the city and integrate with it. It should be a warm, friendly environment. B is for the brewery. I think the team who look at the development here need to be mindful that there is a brewery on site which creates employment. The brewery should be taken in the historical context of Kilkenny, and in addition, the brewery should, if possible, be allowed to maintain some form of presence on the site, albeit perhaps a microbrewery. I also think that the name Smithwicks should be retained, as it's part of the cultural heritage that people associate with the area. C is for cultural uses. Kilkenny has a long-standing track record of cultural uses in the environment, and I think that parts of the site should be considered for cultural uses, be they cinemas, theatres or other particular uses. D is for Dunnes Stores. Dunnes Stores adjoins a large site which is adjacent to this site, and I don't think we can look at the Smithwicks site without looking at the Dunnes Stores site, and a cohesive approach to the solution for the lands needs to be considered. E is for educational uses. Educational uses are good and bring life and vitality to any area, and if there is a demand, they would be a good use for the site. We're also acutely aware that educational uses bring long-term direct and indirect employment, which would be particularly important. F is for flats, or perhaps more appropriately worded, apartments. I think we have to accept that there will be an element of residential use on the site, and we need to be mindful of the design of these uses so that they are attractive for the long term and not just for transient living. We need to entice people who have a long-term vested interest in the site to live in the site, and the design of these apartments is hugely important to do that. Regrettably, in Ireland, I think we've probably failed in the types of apartments that we've been building for people, and this is an opportunity to rectify that. G is for grab. Sometimes schemes have a grab, or sometimes this grab is referred to as an anchor. I don't think that we should get lost in focusing on what is the appropriate grab or anchor for this site. The site in itself must be attractive, and the component parts should be part of what provides for this. But I don't think that we need a particular anchor to make this a success. As such, we don't need to complicate it. H is for the heritage. We need to protect the look and feel of Kilkenny City, and it's very important that this look is translated into whatever development happens on this site. I is for innovation and enterprise, and perhaps some form of entrepreneurial centre could be generated on the site. I mentioned previously that there are jobs on the site, and we shouldn't lose the jobs that are there. Part of this may already be linked with the arts and crafts that I mentioned earlier on. J is for joined up thinking. Across the river there's the Mart site, and I believe this, coupled with the Smithwicks site and the Dunn site that I referred to before, should be taken in the overall context, and perhaps a master plan done for all three. K is for a kaleidoscope, and that's really a kaleidoscope of uses. There need to be a collection of different uses so the site has long-term vitality, sustainability and use, so that would end up being residential, commercial, cultural and social. L is for likely. Sometimes we look at sites and we have big dreams and ambitions, but is it likely or practical that these will be realised? We've got to be practical and realistic, and there's no point in developing a master plan that will never get implemented. M is for the materials. Kilkenny has a long history of good quality materials that can be sourced locally, such as, for example, Kilkenny limestone. It would be of benefit if we could keep these materials and use local materials on the site so that it reflects the environment. N is for number of units, and by that I suppose I mean density. Let's not overcook it and be sensible about what we're trying to achieve in the site. O is for Oriental influence. I'm aware that Kilkenny is twinned with a city in China, and I wonder, are there certain aspects that we can piggyback from this twinning and bring in some element of Oriental influence, which may indeed translate into further tourism or other positive benefits. P, I've addressed already in relation to profit, so moving on to Q. Q, I'm talking about the quantum on the phasing of development. We have to be mindful as to whether it is capable of being built and how it is phased. And we also have to acknowledge that there will be aspects of this site which are loss leading and aspects of it which will be profitable and will subsidise the development of the loss leading areas. R is for retail use. I certainly wouldn't be in favour of letting retail uses be the driving factor, and I think we need to be mindful to protect the existing city that has been established in Kilkenny. S is for sustainable. In sustainable, I'm not talking about materials or energy efficiency, I'm talking about the long-term use of the site, and ultimately time will be the judge to see whether this has been successful. T is for tourism. Tourism is a major contributing factor to the economy of Kilkenny and is part of the solution for the site, and realistically we should incorporate the medieval mile through the site and into uses for the site. U is for uniform. Again, there can be sometimes pre-packed design and uniform design, and I think it's important to have an element of diversity of design on this site, especially considering its size and the number of potential uses that could be had from it. V is for vandalism, and I'm not talking about graffiti. I'm talking about that we've got to be very mindful to protect and not to vandalise what has already been established in Kilkenny. One of the reasons Kilkenny is so successful as a city is because the diversity of uses and the fact that it has not developed into a clone town and homogenised main street. We need to be mindful to protect this for this site so that it doesn't vandalise what's already there. W is for walk and water. I think it would be a nice idea if we could extend a linear park from St John's Bridge up through the site and past Dunnes Stores. And I think we've also got to be cognizant of the Irish weather, and that such a walk would be covered in parts so that people would actually use it. I don't have an X, perhaps not surprisingly, but almost finally Y is for youthful. By that I mean that parts of the medieval city can at times look a little bit drab, and therefore we need to input some energy into the design of this site and aim to create a place that is full of energy and vitality. And then Z is for the zoning. At the moment, the zoning of the site is industrial, so clearly this needs to be changed to allow for the type of diversity that we're looking for. In conclusion, it's clear that the site will have elements of different diversity and different uses, be they residential, commercial, destination, social and tourist uses. But whatever goes on the site, we must respect and complement the existing fabric of Kilkenny City. Thank you.